It's the state of X.
Howdy ho, wrestling fans, and welcome to the State of X podcast. This is the podcast where we talk all things social experiment wrestling with me, your host, Cody Tiano. Thanking you so much for joining me. We have a fantastic show planned out, but we have a big announcement to give right after I do some quick housekeeping. If you love the show, and I really hope that you do, hit that like button, even hit that subscribe button. That way you get notified every single time we put out these videos and all the other great videos that we have on the Social Experiment YouTube page. Follow Social Experiment Wrestling on all the various platforms. Check out socialexperimentwrestling.com. And if you want to check me out on the road, or just check out some of my work outside of Social X, you can find me at Tiano Comedy on all the various platforms. And I'd love and appreciate you if you gave me a follow. All that being said, we have a big announcement, and it is being made first thing here on the podcast. If you're a subscriber to the podcast, you will know this is where you get the direct breaking news first. So you are hearing this. If you're watching the podcast as we drop it, you are going to find out right now that we just booked ballpark shows. That's right. We have 2 upcoming shows this year that are going to be at ballpark stadiums. We have one June 5th in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, at Veterans Memorial Stadium. That is our ballpark beatdown directly after the ball game. And July 31st in Waterloo, Iowa, is our other ballpark beatdown at the Riverfront Stadium. And the cool thing about this, if you buy a ticket to the ball game, you can get into the show for free just showing them the ticket to the game. So if you purchase a game, sit down, enjoy some baseball, then if you stay directly afterwards, you get to watch a Social X show. How good of a deal is that? It's amazing. Check out all the other shows that we've also got planned, but that is the big announcement that we're actually doing shows at a ballpark. If you could believe it, please show up, check all those out. Come up to me during the show. Let me know that you're a fan of the podcast. All of that being said, we have a fantastic show with Chucky Bates and Simon Gotch. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me and enjoy the show. Ladies and gentlemen, my first guest on the podcast. When you say the name Chucky, you might think the Demented Doll, but my guest here has traded off the voodoo curse and has instead traded in for the good psych meds. Luckily, the doctor gave him the good stuff because now he's ready to talk to us. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my first guest, Mr. Chucky Bates. The Demented Chucky Bates, as it were. You
Hey,
seem...
Cody.
How's it going, pal? You seem got a few loose straps there in the jacket. Is that gonna keep you in time?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, you got the you're at least talking to me, so I know you don't have too many conversations with your opponents. You're more of a an action man that I've seen, but hopefully that jacket will keep you in place long enough.
Yeah, that's what it's feeling like for right now.
You
They got me
comfortable? You're a little fidgety. You don't got any not got any bugs in that jacket, do you?
probably a few.
That's fair. All right. Well, so you're from Wisconsin. There are many. Is that a pretty good psych ward up there in Wisconsin?
Yeah, specifically the Sheboygan Haunted Asylum, the abandoned one. They left me there.
I see. That always seems to be a habit of psych patients. Is they end up getting left there. It is a psych ward. I don't seem like they get many donations, but it seems like is that your usual room, or are you always under the stairs like a Harry Potter character?
Just for today, they had a pest control issue they wanted me to take care of.
Pest control. What kind of pest are we talking about here?
Gonna do with roaches and rats, but I don't see exactly what they expect me to do when I'm strapped to this jacket, and I barely have any wiggle room in here.
Well, you might got your feet, and who knows, maybe if you catch a couple, you got dinner covered, I suppose.
Yes, that would be true. Hmm.
Well, I'm glad you took the time out of your hunting schedule, I suppose, to chat with me. So, give me some backstory about Chucky Bates here. How long you been wrestling for? How long have you made it out of the psych ward to wrestle?
As of this Saturday, I will have been in I will have been in professional wrestling 9 years.
9 years, nice. All right. So you're going to be celebrating an anniversary here coming up. Double,
Yeah,
double up on the roaches for your celebration dinner, I suppose.
yeah. Abs-
Well,
But you want to know how I got into this business?
I would love to know how a man of your stature and yeah, let's stick with stature for now. How you got into wrestling?
Well, when I was growing up, my dad, I did not know anything about wrestling until I turned 12. But my dad was a huge fan of baseball and tennis and swimming, of all things. And he was my inspiration for baseball for a while. And when he sadly passed away in 2011,
I'm sorry to hear that.
it was 2012. And with that, my passion for baseball and all of the other sports kind of went. And ironically, there are these tiny little figures called WWE Rumblers at the time. They were action figures, no bigger than I'd say about 2 inches tall. And I was obsessed with miniature figures at the time, not just minifigs, miniature figures. I loved the tiny cartoonish looking action figures that they had back then because they weren't like normal, action figures that needed 100 joint placements in order to do something with.
You didn't need kung fu grip on your toys?
Yeah, yeah, that's probably a good analogy for that. Anyways, I was obsessed with those things, but I did not know they were real people until people that came over. I was still young at the time, but whenever I would be playing around with those things, people would say, "Hey, is that John Cena? And is that Rey Mysterio?" And I was like, "Yeah. How do you know that?" And they're like, "Because those are based off of real people." And my uncle, who was a huge fan of all of the old greats, such as the Baron von Raschke, Dick the Bruiser, and especially the Crusher. It was the first thing he did. He showed me Milwaukee's famous Crusher to open it up, and I wasn't
Okay.
that interested at first. But and then he brought me to my first actual wrestling event, and I was immediately hooked.
What was the first wrestling event?
It was a show here in not in Milwaukee, in Waukesha. Ironically, kind of the same town that is my home show now, too.
Okay.
Show, but definitely the same hometown, which is really cool. Um, I don't remember what show it was, but I do remember it had a lot of legends on it, which was really cool. Uh,
Nice.
let's see.
Who are some of the legends you remember on that show?
Uh, I didn't know their names at the time, but I got to see Funaki in a match. Let's see, the Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Um, I got to work on the same show as another guy that was on that show that day. I think it was Matt Longtime. Yeah, Matt Longtime.
Okay.
And well, not just him, a few others that were on that show. The main event was Rikishi and Too Cool versus three local workers, and I got to wrestle against Scotty Too Hotty's son last year, so that was a full circle moment for me.
Oh, awesome.
And I got to meet him too, which was really cool. Let's see, who else was there? I already mentioned Hacksaw Jim Duggan, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So my cousin who was with us got a figure of the Hacksaw and got it signed that night because he was there. Um, let's see, Demolition, Axe and Smash were there. Uh, let's see, there was uh, independent wrestler Melanie Cruz was on one of the matches. She's better known as AEW's Mel,
Okay.
and I got the chance to work more than a few matches with her years, which was really awesome. Um, and and finally, I got to take a picture in the ring with the with Kevin Nash.
Oh,
I didn't know
really?
who you guys were at the time, and then as I grew to love professional wrestling as a whole, I think that was like a awesome first experience.
Okay. So then, after all of that, and you found your love for professional wrestling, uh, when or how much longer after that did you finally decide, like, I'm gonna go ahead and jump into this and try to do this for a living, or at least, you know, try your best to?
Yeah. So after that, about a year or so later, my mother, she surprised me and my brother in the best way possible. She told us she was taking us to a random band concert, and we obviously didn't want to go. But and then as we got in the car and drove to the location, it showed in to be the well, now it's called the Pfizer Center, but it back then it was called the Bradley Center. It's the big Bucks Stadium, and we were just like, what are we doing here? How big of a concert is this? And then there's next thing you know, we're seeing SmackDown all over the banners, and I was like, oh my god, we're at SmackDown. It was the coolest surprise ever. And after that night, I decided I wanted to give this a shot.
Okay.
Took me a few years to get ready for it, but when I eventually found my home show in Bruce City Wrestling, I think I was 16, but it was March of 2017.
Nice. Okay.
So I've been training under Frankie DeFalco, the Beer City Bruiser from Ring of Honor, Angel Armani, and and a couple others, but those main three guys are the ones responsible for training me over the years.
Did you immediately don the straitjacket, or did you go through some other personas before that?
So I donned the straitjacket pretty quickly.
Okay.
And the funny story behind that, I was just training on a random Wednesday, I believe, and uh, Matt Winchester, Beer City Bruiser, my trainer, was having us do some sort of headlock drill, and he asked me to do it differently this time, and I didn't know what to do exactly. So I I did the only thing that was in my head at the moment, and I still am, but I was a huge Gotham watcher at the time. I love all things Batman related and mostly DC related, but
Hey, you're talking to the guy that's got a full sleeve of Batman, so you're in good company.
nice. You'll have to tell me your favorite comic later.
Oh,
Um,
there's plenty around here.
yeah. Um, I had just finished the episode with the show's version of the Joker, but they called him Jerome Velasca,
Right.
and he had an episode with making the entire town lose their minds, and everybody started laughing. So I put that headlock on, and I just started laughing as hard as I could. And at first, my trainer made it sound like he was getting ready to make me do a few laps because of how ridiculous it looked. But he actually stopped the drill and he was like, "Do that again." He liked it so much that the next week they were telling me, "Have you considered wearing a straitjacket?" And I was like, that's all that's on my mind right now.
Okay. So you took an inspiration from the Joker basically and adding it to your persona. Is that your favorite Batman villain? I know there's a full rogues gallery, so it's going to be hard to narrow it, but
I have to say, yeah, because the more I read and find out about him, the scarier it gets. And at, in the last couple of years, I've grown to really like horror movies in general.
oh. You said you're a fan of horror movies and things like that. So, what was your introduction to those horror movies? What was your first one that actually you sat down and could watch?
All the way through Jaws.
Okay.
Yeah, there was just one day where even though I knew at the time how scary that movie can be, it doesn't matter how fake the shark is. There are moments in that movie that are still scary.
Oh,
Like
absolutely.
um yeah, that's what makes that first one such a masterpiece. It's not really because of the graphics and all that, but yeah, I sat down with my cousin, I think my aunt at the time, and we just sat down and watched the whole movie from start to finish. And yeah, it was scary, but I got through it.
Oh,
Kind
yeah.
of made me more, but I, I wish I didn't keep watching the Jaws movies. They only got
Yeah.
worse.
Yeah. They kind of fall off. But like two, you can manage to work your way through, but once you get to three with Michael Caine in there and the helicopter and everything like that, like it falls off pretty hard. It's one of the only great horror movies that you can't keep watching to go. You just have to stick with the one. And I mean, there's a reason that that score is so iconic even still to this day. Like it was fantastic the way they did, like not so much when the shark attacked and you saw it, it was more about like what you couldn't see, and then they made your imagination just go wild with it.
Yeah.
Okay. So, did you ever go through I mean, I said in my introduction, you say Chucky and you think the Demented Doll. Have you ever sat down and watched the Child's Play movies?
Oh, absolutely. My
Okay.
favorite easily Bride of Chucky because
Of
that
course.
the introduction to Jennifer Tilly was perfect. I wish they didn't have the two main lead protagonists in that their whole relationship aspect of that movie was a chore to watch, and every reviewer online basically says the same thing.
Yeah, but I mean, Jennifer Tilly's a phenomenal actress. Like, it is a little weird. Like, back then everybody thought it was odd the way she just holds the doll and is talking to this, and now in 2026 that is a lot more normal than you would think.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, so yeah, I think my introduction to horror was I mean, I'm wearing the shirt for one in honor of the unfortunate news that we got of the Chin himself, Bruce Campbell, but my my first ever full sit down of a horror movie was the Evil Dead original series.
Oh yeah, those were some really good ones, especially the early ones.
I
Yeah,
loved the slapstick almost of Evil Dead 2 where it combined horror and comedy in it of him just
yeah.
howling
Bruce
with.
and Sam Raimi have been huge Three Stooges fans for a long time, and I remember either watching or just reading about a movie they put together not long after the first Evil Dead. I think it was called Intruder.
Yeah.
Uh, um, and they had one of the not one of the original Three Stooges, but one of the Three Stooges actors was on set with them, and apparently Bruce Campbell and Sam Raimi were ecstatic around them or him.
Oh yeah. Have you ever sat down and watched through like some of the old Three Stooges movies and things like the original ones? I know like they did a reboot of them with like Will Sasso and a
That
couple other
one was
guys.
I loved it, but it was very much not anything like the originals. And I know exactly what you're talking about. When I was super young, my uncle took me to the theater, and they just had like an hour, 2 hour, maybe even 3 hours of showing of just all the old Three Stooges cartoons, or not cartoons, just Three Stooges episodes.
Right.
And I didn't know, but when I left, I could not stop laughing.
Oh, absolutely. It was almost the fluidity of the way they could just start swinging on each other, but knew the quick movements of course, the eye protection right there is a classic, but just how quickly they can slam on each other and the wit back and forth between it. It was, it's hardly, something that you can compare it to or even, uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Or reimagine almost.
Yeah.
Did
A
you?
lot of content is what a lot of slapstick humor is based on now.
I don't want it to sound too insulting, by all means, but is there anything like something like that, or even with comics that you've tried to implement into your wrestling as well? Like, have you ever tried an eye poke real quick?
Yeah, but they never get their hands up fast enough.
That's fair. I mean, that's good for you that they don't have the quick enough defense. But
I definitely take a lot of pieces from Joker comics for myself. Specifically, and just going back to a conversation we had earlier, one of my favorite DC movie trilogies is the Son of Batman trilogy, the one with Damian Wayne.
yeah.
I loved his character development. However, I am beyond ticked off that they never once tried to do the death of the family, because I one of my favorite things about the comic that involved uh, Damian Wayne's Robin was the death of the family one, that included mostly him versus the Joker, which I thought was crazy because you had Damian Wayne, who was this ah the League of Assassins trained this kid since birth, and
Yeah.
he was a born assassin and all that. He could kill a bunch of Batman's villains if he wanted to, and yet he takes one look at the Joker and is like, I can take him. And then as soon as he comes face to face with the Joker, he's immediately overwhelmed. Like he's unable to fight back to him because he's either injured or he's struggling. Joker is just constantly getting on top of him and beating the living hell out of him. And I'm just like, I would love for somebody to do something like that in a DC adaptation movie of that whole story. They could make like 3 or 4 movies of that, all building to that giant climax.
Oh, absolutely. I know the
Because it was the first comic I saw that showed Damian Wayne in a very, very vulnerable state, because he was not the usual Damian Wayne. He was not this kid who could fight out of anything or escape through anything, beat anybody, kill anybody he wanted. When he went one on one with the Joker, specifically this particular Joker, he was way out of his league.
oh
And it's
yeah.
the things that I like the most about those comics, or specifically that one.
Yeah, when you get these guys that are like fully prepared of like, oh, I've handled all this, I've been trained by assassins, and then you just get thrown in with an absolutely unpredictable opponent. It is hard to, you know, handle something like that. That's the beauty of a lot of Batman's villains. They have that aspect to where they can just completely throw you for a loop. Like you've got Scarecrow that with his fear toxin, Victor Freeze, like not only with the freeze gun, but the fact that he's such a genius behind all of that. So he's not only, you're trying to fight a guy that's completely covering the field in ice and freezing you to, temperatures beyond your imagination, but also he's just thinking about his next move and what exactly he can do against you, which is one of the villains that is on my arm. I've got Victor Freeze there, I've got Joker, Man Bats up here, and Riddler and Two Face and all that. I've
Yeah.
I've wanted to complete this with other villains, but there's just such a roster that is so difficult to narrow down which ones I want to get. And there's always like ones that pop up and I go, "Oh yeah, totally forgot about him." Like I just recently remembered Scarface, the marionette puppet.
Yeah, and the villain ventriloquist.
Yep, the ventriloquist with that, and of course you always got Clayface, which is
Clayface one, one of my other favorites. Definitely my lesser favorite, but he's up there.
oh, I would love to see that. Like I grew up watching the animated series, and so just that storyline of like a Hollywood actor that just tries to this
Mold
magic
his
cream, yeah, to like
Yeah,
shift his face and keep his beauty and all that, and then it just takes over and he becomes this monster. I love that storyline of, things like that just go wrong and they just immediately snap and change. It's the same thing with what happened with Waylon Jones, Killer Croc. Had that skin condition and it turned him into, the creature that he is.
Yeah.
Is that so you stick strictly with DC? Is it just
No,
Batman that you go with, or
no, I mean, like, I don't stick strictly to DC. It's just my favorite when
right?
it comes to. I do have to admit, movie wise, for the most part, Marvel is a bit better, especially with the box office. I can't sit here and deny that. But when it comes to comic books, and especially when it comes to video games, DC has them beat.
Oh, absolutely. I would say movie live action Marvel has tipped the scales in their favor, but when it comes to the animated side of things, I think DC has them on the
Yeah.
animation.
The only animated Marvel show that could possibly come close to holding a candle to any of the original DC TV shows, and I'm talking like Superman and Batman the animated series, and the Justice League shows and all that. The only one that comes close is the Spectacular Spider-Man, and they
Ooh,
canceled it.
yeah,
That was
that's true.
and they canceled it. So, yeah,
Incredible. There is one Marvel movie that, and again, I've got many of his comics here, but it's one of the Marvel movies that I absolutely love is World War Hulk. I'm a huge Hulk fan.
yeah. I've always been a huge Hulk fan as well. Uh,
It's just they butchered my boy in the live action. They've turned him into Professor Hulk, and like I want to see the big green
yeah,
Goliath.
in Endgame,
Oh yeah,
the
I
whole thing that made him so cool was that despite having control, he was still a weapon of mass destruction if you ticked him off enough. And now he's just a guy,
yeah, he has full control.
just a muscular guy. That's it.
Yeah, and
Don't don't even start with me on that whole She-Hulk situation. I don't ever talk about that.
we won't get too much into that, don't worry. But yeah, like, and they could have easily done something similar to that. They almost had it when they did Thor Ragnarok, because of course that was based off of the World War Hulk storyline, but they didn't do it well enough. It was basically like Banner gave Hulk control, and Hulk, slowly he didn't necessarily calm down because there's no calming down the Hulk, but it was like they learned to work together more, and now it's just Banner going, "Oh yeah, no, I now have the powers of Hulk, but I have full control." It's like, well, there's no fun in that. You don't get anything like in Age of Ultron where he might, somebody where Scarlet Witch takes over his mind and he just tears through the
Yep,
city.
that made things interesting. As soon as I saw him with the glasses on, I was like, well, they just butchered one of my favorite characters.
100%. I still love, like, people will rip on them, but like I'll still watch the old Ang Lee Hulk movies with oh god, not David Banner. Why am I forgetting his name? But then or the Edward Norton Hulks. I still love the scene in the Edward Norton ones where like he's got the guy like he's just destroyed the tanks on the college campus, and dude that becomes the Abomination walks up and is still trying to taunt the Hulk, and he just 1 foot
Yeah,
into the tree.
that was that was exactly what I always wanted to see from the Hulk.
Oh yeah, just that scene just before that where they're just pumping smoke bombs into that little walkway, and you just slowly see the transformation through the smoke, and just boom breaks through.
Yeah, because that
Amazing
that's
scene.
exactly what I believe was the problem with that. They made it too easy for Bruce Banner's character. They made it too easy on him for that end game because the whole point of the first couple Hulk movies was that his life is an absolute hell.
Yeah,
He, he's forced to become this monster. The government is constantly trying to find him and all that. Now he's working for the government. No one's trying to hook him up anymore. No one's
Right.
no one's trying to cure him. No one's trying to take his powers or anything. He's just a guy who just sometimes turns big.
And there's so
And
many
then,
executives that are saying like, "Oh, we can't do a solo Hulk movie." I mean, besides probably like I don't think they fully own the rights like Disney. I think Fox still might own it, but I could be wrong on that. Eric Bana was the other Hulk, by the way. Totally just remembered that. Shows you how my brain works. But uh
yeah,
but no, they could absolutely do a solo Hulk movie. It's just you have to get the proper writers involved in
yeah.
that.
Like everybody loves Iron Man, but the one thing that separates Iron Man from like characters like Spider-Man and the Hulk is that Spider-Man and the Hulk, they don't have it easy. Like they're constantly facing terrible odds.
Oh,
Um, like I see it all over the place. Everybody wants to be Spider-Man, but nobody wants to be Peter Parker. That's what makes them relatable. That's what makes them real. Not it's not how easy they have it, it's about how hard they have it.
right. I love that
Oh,
Spider-Man comic with when Aunt May gets shot and hospitalized and Peter's got the black suit and goes to prison because Kingpin ordered the hit and he just takes everything off other than his pants, of course, and just goes, "You're not fighting Spider-Man, you're fighting Peter Parker," and just beats him within an inch of his life and threatens to fill his lungs with webbing.
yeah,
It,
Peter Parker is a convoluted character, and that's what makes him so great. And I think the most recent Insomniac video games, did that justice because they didn't portray him as, oh, he's just a great guy. No,
right.
he's a human being who has flaws, and that's what people connect with.
I mean, people sometimes forget, like, and I think Tom Holland did a great job portraying this, but like a lot of people
That's-
forget, like in the comics, Spider-Man's 16. Like most of the time, like obviously in like the a lot of the cartoons and things like that, he's a little bit older, but in a majority of comics and I think even in the Avengers, he is 16 years old. He's a kid trying to live his life with strength that is like almost on par with Hulk's because there's that Superior Spider-Man comic where Doc Ock gains control of Peter Parker's body, like he soul swaps or something along that. And there's a moment where Doc Ock in Spider Man's body punches Scorpion in the face, not realizing he's got to hold back, and it breaks Scorpion's jaw. And he's like, "Oh shit!" You see like Doc Ock realize like, "Oh god, Spider Man has been holding back this entire time." And that's one of those terrifying moments where you're like, "Oh, this is a kid that has strength that could tower over everybody, but he is still trying to do the right thing."
like you said, that's what Tom Holland did really good with that last movie for Spider-Man because he showed in his fight against the Green Goblin that he was holding back, but he wasn't going to with the Green Goblin.
Right. Because yeah, it's the same case. Like I think they were trying to dig into that same comic. Like he went against Kingpin. They were trying to give that same energy of him against Goblin. Like you're not fighting Spider-Man, you're fighting Peter Parker right now. I think that's
Yeah,
what they were going for. And it's still like the epitome. Like it's funny. I was just talking about this today. It's still one of my favorite moments. That showed that they absolutely nailed it with Spider-Man, and it was the Civil War movie when
yeah.
he's going up against Winter Soldier and Falcon, and he just catches Winter Soldier's arm, and he just goes, "You have a metal arm? That's so cool!" I was like, "Okay, yeah, this is Spider-Man right here."
He's gonna be fine. Yeah, he's gonna be fine as Spider-Man.
Absolutely. I think when it comes to that, Tobey Maguire, of course, he's the one I grew up with. He played a good Peter Parker. I think he was great Peter Parker. Andrew Garfield, great Spider-Man, but Tom Holland, definitely the two together, he was great with that, with getting the antithesis of who Spider-Man is.
Yeah,
Well, we've got a little bit more time, and uh, by all means, I love talking comics with you. It seems to be par for the course whenever I get a wrestler on here. We're going to talk about nerdy shit, and by all means, I'm all for it. But I still want to know because, of course, this is the State of
yeah.
X, Social X Wrestling. What is it?
Right.
What's next for Chucky Bates? Like, are you gonna, you know, you've obviously got some upcoming shows with us, and we're very appreciative of having you. Like, what's some of the goals that you've had for yourself?
I want to get out there right now. Like originally when I started this journey, I had it in my mind that I wanted to get signed. And that's still a goal, but it's not the goal I have right now. Right now my goal is to make the most of this, travel as much as I can, have as much fun as I can because if I don't get signed, this and this is going to be it. I'm going to have fun. I'm not going to spend all my years doing this just to say, "Oh, I should have had more fun." Because I'm having fun. I'm enjoying the road I'm on. But more specifically, I want to get out there. I want to learn. I'm I've got a bunch of buddies of mine that always travel with me, and I'm always trying to get out there and get my name out there a bit more. Like one of my one of my mentors from here in Milwaukee, uh, deathmatch legend. He's about to be inducted into the Deathmatch Hall of Fame.
Oh
Uh,
wow.
dis- yeah,
Okay.
uh, dysfunction. It's crazy looking back on so much IWA, CZW, and I'm probably missing quite a few more. But he's all over the place in the course of deathmatch wrestling history. Might not be the most important figure when it comes to deathmatch wrestling, but if you look back from the mid 2000s to right around the mid 2010s, and you just look at all those IWA, CZW matches, he was a part of it. Like, for example, he was there the day John Moxley got the wood chipper to the head,
Ooh.
and the same that Nick Gage got helicoptered away because they thought he was going to die. Dysfunction opened that show.
Yeah.
I don't want to be, I don't really care if I am in the history books like Gage or Moxley, but I would like to try and make it into a piece of that history. And that's what I'm going to try to do.
Is there a specific wrestler that you kind of wanna, you've always really wanted to go up against? It doesn't even have to be a guy in the WWE, just a wrestler out there that you've always wanted a match with.
I've always wanted a match with Sammy Callahan. I know he retired recently, so that one's up in the air. But Callahan was the main one I really wanted to always have a match with. Um, and if not him, then uh, if not him, then Eric Young.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah. I really enjoyed all of his stuff when he was a part of Sanity, but I mostly enjoyed all of his stuff in TNA, and I got to meet him when I helped out for TNA quite a few years ago, which was really cool.
Awesome. Now, are you a fan of like I know obviously you're having a ton of fun and that's fantastic to hear. Do you still participate in like hardcore matches and like able to cut yourself and doing things like that? Like or you like more traditional like tactical wrestling?
I will never declare myself a deathmatch wrestler because it's an insult to their form of art.
That's fair.
But I am a normal wrestler who likes to get violent sometimes. I, if I'm put in an abnormal match, don't expect it to be, oh, one chair, half possibly a door. It's going to be a normal match with just a couple spots like that in there. No, I'm going to go all out with the gimmicks, the weapons, and I'm going to have a good time with it. Doesn't matter if there's only 5 people in the crowd. If I've given the chance to use gimmicks, I am going to use them.
Do you have a favorite go-to weapon that you would use? Crowbar.
Yeah,
Going back
this
to
is
Joker.
yeah, not a crowbar, surprisingly, but a tiki torch.
Really?
Yeah,
Lit or unlit?
I went to the Dollar Tree and they had a bunch of tiki torches on sale, and I bought a bunch of them. I didn't think they were gonna be that effective, but first couple swings they explode, and then the tips since the piece keeping it all apart is crushed and open. Now the tips become basically their own little spikes.
Oh, that's true.
So not only a foreign object like a kendo stick, but it's also got some sharp tips for an eye gouging.
Well,
So
thankfully it's 2026, so it's no longer problematic for a white dude to be buying a bunch of tiki torches.
yeah.
All right, well, like I said, we've got a couple more minutes left, and my dog just keeps popping on the other side, hits at me. But where can people check you out? What do you want people to get eyes on?
You want people to get eyes on me and what I can do. You can find me anywhere in the Milwaukee area. I might live in the Delafield area, but I live in the Milwaukee area when it comes to wrestling. Waukesha and Milwaukee, those are my home turfs. But you can always find me somewhere on the road.
What's your social media handles?
You can find me usually at Demented Bates when it comes to Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Those are usually my monikers. Otherwise, it's Chucky Point Bates.
All right, well, Chucky, I appreciate you taking the time to sit down and have a conversation with me. Like I said, I can talk comics and horror movies with you for
So can I?
hours on end, and by all means, we're gonna have some more conversations, even when we have our live shows. By all means, stop by the commentary table and we'll chit chat some more comics.
Oh, we'll have a lot to talk about.
All right, Chucky, have a good night, man.
All right, you too.
Get it. I'ma 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 get it.
Ladies and gentlemen, my next guest, of course, does not need an introduction, but I would be remiss if I did not give him one. You might know him from NXT, WWE, MLW, TNA. He's held championships, but please show your admiration and appreciation for him taking the time out of his schedule to talk with us. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for the Simon Gotch. Simon, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing wonderful. Yourself?
Not too bad. Just winding down for the day, long day of truck driving, but now I get to have a fun conversation with you.
Well, there we go. I mean, I would like to think that I'm slightly more interesting than driving a long truck day.
Believe me, the bar is low, so you don't have to put too much pressure on yourself.
Well, I was an expert limboer at one point in my life, so that's a low bar has never been a problem.
How does one become an expert limboer? We're going to jump right into it now with a statement like that.
Well, you'd have to ask, the coach of the Olympic team, Hermes Conrad. He was a Olympic level limboer.
Oh my...
I'm just making a reference to Futurama.
I know. I was literally about. I was thinking about. I was like, I know that from Futurama, and then my stupid brain was like, is there a real guy named Hermes Conrad?
He wasn't apparently even originally Jamaican. I guess there was no description of him other than the name, and all of that just came out of Phil Lamar. He just did it on his own.
God, it was still a great moment. That with his spicy chili, how he just loved it more and more spice.
Mm-hmm.
That's ended up being my love for Latin women and finding my love for spice as well.
Fair. Hey, you know what? Whatever gets you there, man. That's what you got to look at. Whatever gets you from point A to point B, be happy about it.
Exactly. Now, I wasn't sure coming into this conversation because it seems that my producer has a habit of booking the talent with fantastic mustaches. I didn't know if I was going to get the curly one going when we first
Not at this
started.
time. Not, not,
No,
at, not at this hour. No, no.
that's fair.
Yeah.
You didn't
And
want
that's
to.
if I'm on the clock, then that's something different. But when I'm off the clock like this, I mean, what is it? Wednesday?
It's Wednesday.
I have no concept of time.
That's fair. It
I,
happens.
I'm real bad about it. Like I've often the joke will be like, I know when my mom's birthday is, but I don't know what day it is of like what day of the week we're in.
Oh,
Like,
dude.
oh, my mom's birthday is February 22nd. Or what? Well, no, it's not February 22nd. But I'm like, my mom's birthday is February. I was like, I can't just say my mom's real birthday.
That's
I
fair.
was about to think to myself, I was like, oh, my mom's birthday is February 22nd. And I'll stop and thinking like, okay, what fucking day is it? Are we in January? Are we in February? What month is it right now? Like, I don't know what day it is.
That's fair. I barely remembered it was March. So,
Right?
so with the mustache now, you're very much like while you were in the WWE, Simon Gotch was the strongman of his tag team duo. You had the single arm singlet, obviously the curly mustache. Now, did you come up with the persona of the 1920s strongman, or was that brought to you?
That was me. What had originally happened was I had done a version of the gimmick that was more leaning into catch wrestling and stuff like that. I started that like fall of 2010, and then I sort of leaned fully into it in 2011. Then after a year of doing that with just the mustache, but I was wearing trunks and just low boots, I did a TV taping in I believe it was Nebraska in was it Lincoln, Nebraska? I think it was Lincoln, Nebraska. Lincoln, Nebraska. A buddy of mine wound up doing a dark match that got him signed. I went and talked to Regal. He looked at me for I had the mustache up, and we talked for a little bit, and he basically suggested I put together like a video package, something like the old timey strongman thing. And I wound up doing that, and I pitched it to the company, and that got me a tryout at SmackDown 1000, and that got me a tryout in Tampa, which was, I believe, the last 4-day tryout the company ever did. There were 70 something people there, 20 that had been invited, 50 that had paid. I think it was, I want to say it was 1,500 or $2,000 a piece to take part in the camp.
Nice.
Um, Out of that camp, they signed me, Wesley Blake, what was it, Buddy Murphy, and Sammy Callahan. There's one other person, I think, Big Steve, Steve Good, he got released while in NXT, but he was another one because I think they signed 5 guys out of the camp.
Okay. And you've just stuck with that ever since. Have you ever kind of looked into the old history of strongman trying to,
Oh yeah, no,
delve
I'm
more into the
actually
character? I'm sorry, what was that?
I'm actually pretty well versed in it. My favorite of the stories that I came across was Louis Cyr, who was French Canadian. And basically, the short version of the story is all of the old tricks, all of the old stunts that the strongmen used to do were all gimmick. They were all fake. It was all, for show. Louis Cyr didn't know that. And he would do this stuff for real. And that wound up killing him
Oh.
because he basically tried to do a stunt where he was going to, if I recall correctly, like he was strapped up to to a couple different horses.
Mm-hmm.
And they ran. His whole thing was just like, so we had to stay tight to keep them from running away. And he wound up basically having like a heart attack and like damaging a bunch of organs and stuff doing that. And so he basically killed himself because he got worked into a chute, for lack of a better term.
I mean, could be worse. He could have been drawn and quartered, basically, with trying to
Oh,
deal with
yeah, but I
horses.
mean, dead's dead.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, no matter which way you slice it, dead is dead.
Yeah.
See, I love the like you always see like the contortionist or like the pain. Oh, I wish I knew the name of the pain guys that'll just drive a nail up into their
Oh
nasal
yeah,
cavity.
well, that's more of the geek stuff, more of the we're gonna do something gross or weird. Because there are 2 types of freaks when you go to a freak show. There are the natural freaks, which are people who usually have some sort of physical anomaly,
Mm-hmm.
and then there are the technical freaks, which are the people that like do something weird or gross. And
True.
those are more the geeks, the people that bite heads off chickens or driving or the sword swallowers or the people where it's like it's a skill, in big quotation marks sometimes, but it's like if you're doing a thing that's weird, then there are people like the world's smallest woman or the world's tallest man or the world's fattest twins who, by modern American standards, normal, pretty normal, not that impressive.
Yeah, I think like back in the day, like the world's heaviest man was 300, 400 pounds, and now that's getting close to average.
It happens. It's a sign of a successful society when you think about it.
That's true.
When our big problem is obesity, we've kind of conquered hunger, so that's the big one for human history.
Chalk one up for us.
Yeah.
I am a fan of food, so I'm gonna be getting there as well. Maybe I'll bring back the freak show, and I'll be one of the star attractions.
Well, think about it. If you hang out long enough, though, you can do the freak show of just normal looking people.
That's true.
You
So
know?
it seems my wife has always said that with my comedy, I've been a comedian for 7 years now. It seems like most of the time I do attract the freaks and the weirdos, and I mean that in the best way possible.
Well, that's the thing about stand-up comedy is that if you look at it, it falls actually in a similar category of like the triangle I like to call it is pro wrestling, stripping, and stand-up comedy. Because when you hear the problems that all three groups of people have, you realize how similar the jobs are.
I've done 2 out of the 3,
Yeah.
not pro wrestling.
I was about to say, and I heard you were a great stripper, so that's very impressive.
I appreciate
But,
that. So you're familiar with my work.
it was a lot to take in, but
I wish you weren't the only person to say that.
but what was it? You just find a lot of the same like issues and traumas. Like I watched the show Crashing, which was Pete Holmes on HBO,
Yeah,
and when he's flyering for an event to get on the card,
right.
I was having PTSD. I was like, oh God, I've been there. Oh, I know that feeling of, oh, you got to pass out 50 flyers if you want to wrestle. Got to sell 10 tickets if you want to wrestle. I can't pay you, but here's 5 tickets you can sell.
Oh yeah. It's the
Man,
same with going out there and barking
yeah.
and trying to bring people into the show. Where you're like, all right, the show's gonna start in 30 minutes. Go out there and start yelling at people on the street to try to get them inside.
As though people don't have plans.
Right. You just hope
if
for
I
that one
walk,
moment where like, hey, are you just wandering around? Come inside. It's not like you're doing anything.
which again, it's such a weird, and it's the same thing again with a lot of promotional tactics used in all three. They haven't evolved at all in the last century.
No.
Like they're using the same techniques they've been using since the 1930s, 1940, 1920s. And it's just kind of odd that you see it and you go, yeah, man, there's no reason that a stand-up comedian in 1973 should be having the same experience as a pro wrestler in 2026. Like that's weird. Someone needs to figure out a better way to do this because we can't just keep hoping for the best and using archaic techniques.
Turns out the oldest profession is not the only one that has the oldest complaints.
I think they actually have found the oldest complaint on record.
Really? Oh, I think I heard about this.
It's like from ancient Egypt or something like that. Like there's like a legit complaint in one of the in hieroglyphs.
Yeah,
About.
it's a stone tablet. I think I know what you're talking about. Where it's
Yeah.
like some guy was trying to get copper from a merchant, and he wrote on a stone tablet like, "Hey, I paid you for this much, and you shorted." It was like he got the copper, but then the guy didn't pay him as much that he promised for the copper. He's like, "You
Right.
shorted me, and you still owe me money."
Again, humans we like to think we've evolved socially or ethically or emotionally in some way in the last several thousand years. We haven't.
No.
It's all the same stuff.
Now, there's a couple more names that you have gone by, and one of them piqued my interest because you are a fan of going over and hitting the Japan circuit. And now, is that while you're on the Japan circuit, do you go by Super Otaku? Is that your name when you're over
No,
there?
I did that basically a few times under a mask just because we needed extra guys for a card.
Okay, so
That's all.
there was no particular reason for picking Otaku.
Well, again, it was just I was trying to think of something I was like trying to come up with a mask because I told basically come up with a mask gimmick something so we can because we need extra guys on the card to fill out
Mm-hmm.
because again something you used to you don't see it as much anymore, but there were a lot of the old hustles you'd see on cards where it was like, okay, we've got 7 guys but we need to have a full card, so what do? We've got a couple of guys who are going to wrestle under masks. They'll wrestle twice. We'll do a match where it'll be like a singles match and then there'll be a run-in and that'll lead into a tag match later, stuff like that. because a lot of the money that was put into indie wrestling is a relatively new thing. The idea of like having a card where you are paying people money was blasphemous. It was like a lot of those older shows. People don't realize I'm going to be at 25 years in August.
Right.
And people do not realize how different independent wrestling is from, again, a quarter century ago.
So were there times you were just going over to hit the Japan circuit and you weren't getting paid at all?
Oh, no, I never went to Japan until the first time I went to Japan was 2016 for WWE.
Okay.
So, and then I've gone over 2 other times since then, 3 months for Noah, and then in 2022, and then last year I went over for Great. It's spelled Gleet, but they pronounced it as Great for some reason. I heard it and I thought that sounds a little racist, but they're doing it, so I'm not going to question it.
That's fair.
But I wrestled Katsuhiko Nakajima for the UWF championship.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, I never did that gimmick outside. I don't even think I did that gimmick outside of California. I think I did it on the Indies very briefly, and it was pretty much just because, they needed an extra body.
Okay, so you're saying there's not hit a obsession with computers or social culture that you have?
Not really, no.
No?
I mean, I used to think so. I think there was a point where if you'd asked me that, I would have said it was probably accurate. But as I've gotten older and I've seen how weird everyone else is about everything, I'm like, I'm probably not actually that weird.
Boy, you are telling that to the guy that literally has Bionicles and an arcade machine and Pokemon and Batman stuff surrounding him right now.
Well, we all got our things. Like I've
Oh,
got
yeah.
the Kaneko banners behind me. I've got the couple action figures. But the thing to me is there's I don't know another way to say this. There are people, they usually fall into 3 categories.
Mm-hmm.
There are people that like the thing. There are people that make the thing their personality, and there are people that don't like the thing but like to socialize and use the thing as a medium to do it.
Hmm.
I think the middle group, the people who like the thing, are the rarest. But there are a lot of people that make the thing their personality, or they don't really care about the thing. It's just a way for them to socialize. So that, like, I'm sure you know people like that who they like football, but what they really like to do is get together with their friends and drink.
That's fair.
They,
That is.
they just want to hang out and bullshit, and they don't really care. Like, they're not super concerned about the game. They have a favorite team, but like they're not really paying attention as much as they are partying.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
And
that.
seeing it with wrestling fans is like the most disconcerting thing. Where I'm like, man, there's other stuff you could watch. Like if you don't like pro wrestling, you can watch something else.
Yeah, by all means. But I mean, like, there was there's some theory about like even baseball stadiums. It's like they have to figure out a way to get people to stay and watch this, and it's mostly like, hey, we're gonna keep you here for X amount of hours just so you will continue to buy hot dogs, pizza, and beer.
Well, again, I mean, concessions is basically where a lot of people make their money.
True.
Um, they've said, I guess, that most gas stations don't actually make money off gas sales. They make their money off the convenience store sales.
That makes sense. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a couple of gas stations like the places I grew up at. I don't think they made any money on concession sales because it was right next to uh, a recreation center, but unfortunately that rec center was across the street from a drug rehab center, and so that gas station, I'm pretty sure it changed like ownerships and names like at least 6 times in 4 years because they had a giant window in the front, and every single time you'd pass by, somebody threw a brick through that, and it'd just be boarded back up again.
That's life, though. I mean, you see a big window, you got to throw a brick through it. That's just it's just
That's,
science.
that's true, and then you get free candy.
They really should have thought about that before they put the big window there.
That's true, and then they kept putting up the window there as if like the new owner's gonna come in and go, okay, well yeah, they threw a brick through that guy's window, but they're not gonna throw a brick through my window.
Well, there is an assumption when we see violence that it is personally motivated,
True.
and the idea that it's truly random is very shocking. When I was, geez, it's probably 22, no, 20, I would have been 20 or 21. I was going to visit my brother and some of his friends at his buddy's place, and I parked my car along the street. It's middle of the night. This is in Rincon Valley, it's Northern California.
Mhm.
Go inside, we're hanging out, whatever. I go to leave, and at some point, someone had apparently smashed in my windshield with a jar of pasta sauce.
Huh.
Now, this is not a neighborhood I live in. It's not even it's like a really nice neighborhood, actually. It wasn't even a bad neighborhood.
Right.
And all I could think was probably some 16-year-old walked by, saw a car, and just smashed the window because they thought it was funny.
Was it at
Nothing
least good
personal.
pasta sauce?
It was not. I couldn't even tell you. I just remember seeing the jar and being like, "You got to be kidding me!" Like, admittedly, I'm not 100% sure it was the jar, but it looked like
Right.
that was where the hole was, and the jar was on the ground. I was like, "Well, I mean, sturdy jar, I guess. Thankfully,
Yep.
it's not my car full of pasta sauce now."
Yeah, that's fair. That is a thick jar, but you throw that against a windshield, and they're a little bit comparable in
Well,
density.
the windshields are meant to break. That's the thing. They're meant to shatter so that you don't get slashed to pieces.
Oh yeah, they got a spider web and try to maintain its uh form as much as possible, but eventually it does just give right in.
Mm.
So there's one other name you went by, and it was very like the beginning of your career, Ryan Drago, and I'm curious about if that was more your Rocky 4 fan or it was also based off of a strongman.
No, I had to come up with something at like last minute. They didn't like the name. I had started in a company. They didn't like the name I chose. I think it was on a poster and then it never wound up being used. Um, and then they were basically like before the show, they're like, "Hey, you need to come with a different name," and that was all I could come up with.
Okay.
Yeah,
What was the
I know
original name
a
before
lot of
that?
stuff. What's that?
What was the original name before Ryan Drago?
I want to say the name I'd gotten was because I think I got called Psycho Seth initially, and I fucking hated that so much.
Yeah?
Um, I think I got called Chance Erickson. I think it was.
Hmm.
Again, that was never. I never wrestled under that name.
Right.
I mean, you're on like maybe a poster, like a match announcement, but that was it. And then it got changed, and they seemed to come with something else, and that was all I could think of was Rocky Four, and it's like, okay, we'll just go with that.
I mean, Drago is a hell of an intimidating name. Uh,
All sorts of there's like a real guy with that name. I googled it before, and I think he was a lawyer,
oh, a lawyer, but God,
yeah.
that is intimidating in a courtroom and a ring.
Right?
So, uh, without what was the animosity behind Psycho Seth? Is it just like because the name Psycho, like you didn't want to
It just
be
seemed stupid.
insulting?
No, it just seemed like a stupid name. I
Fair.
I think at the time that when I was younger, obviously I wasn't necessarily able to verbalize or certain term or certain ideas I had. I
Hmm.
wasn't quite where I was at with comprehension of a lot of what I was doing to where I could understand what was bothering me about it. As I've gotten older, the best way to say it is your job as a wrestler is not to convince the audience it's real. It is to not burden them with the fact that it's fake.
Yeah.
And there are certain things we do that burden people with the fact that it's fake. Um, Sometimes it's finishes, sometimes it's moves, sometimes it's spots, and sometimes it's something as simple as a name. And my first thought is like, okay, no one's mother names them Psycho Seth. No, that's not on my driver's license. And even if it was like Psycho in quotation marks, Seth Lesser, okay, that's at least a full name. But when
Right.
you just call someone Psycho Seth, it just feels like such a lazy. I sort of have a vague idea of what pro wrestling is, and there are characters like the Stomper and the Crusher. So I need a name like the Stomper or the Crusher, but that's not how people are actually named. So when you have that sort of gap between reality and caricature, you wind up where it's like your very presence is a disturbance. Like people aren't going to hear that name and just assume I'm a person. They're going to go, ah, that's a character. And now they're emotionally disengaged because they're watching a character, they're not watching a wrestler.
So do you think in things like WWE, it's a little bit easier to get a character across rather than like in the independent circuit, it might be a little bit more difficult? Or is it?
I I think the problem is the concept of character is very vague to the people who are deciding that.
Mm.
A good character moment, just from a standpoint, going back to just something I saw live, there was a match between, or a moment between AJ Styles and Roman Reigns where like AJ was on the floor by the announce tables. Roman was in the ring, and it's kind of like if AJ tries to go around the ring, Roman's going to get him.
Right.
If AJ gets in the ring, Roman's going to get him because he can't get to he's trying to get to the entranceway basically to leave. And I think what AJ winds up doing is he slides a chair into the ring and he's waiting. And Roman's like looking at the chair, looking at him, looking at the chair, looking at him. And finally, Roman goes to grab the chair and like AJ springboards up, jumps over the top of him, slides out of the ring and goes.
Hmm.
And it was a great character moment because it's like, it wasn't good guy, bad guy. It was two people who are in a tense situation trying to find a resolution where they're not getting hurt.
Right.
Roman doesn't trust AJ. AJ doesn't trust Roman, so he's trying to get out of there without any injury. But I think when people hear character, they think, Halloween store costume. Even with the vaudevillain stuff, I tried to give it some depth and some actual personality and some like, well, here's some stuff, and they just never used it.
Right.
Because in their mind, well, you have a character because you have this thing that's very obvious and simple that we understand. The audience can digest this.
Hmm.
And it's like, well, yeah, they can digest it, but it can either satiate them, it can nourish them, or it can give them diarrhea. Which do you want?
Did you ever have like what were some of the things that you tried to add on to that character? Like, did you ever have one of the big dumbbells with the spherical weights
Oh,
on the end of it?
I did stuff like that. But it was things like, for perspective, I said that I was a master of Bartitsu, which was an actual Victorian era British martial art.
Okay.
A guy named Edgar Barton Wright, he was a railway engineer and fight enthusiast. He's also responsible for designing the first railway system in Japan in like 1888.
Okay.
So he goes to Japan, he spends 10 years there, and while he's there, he already had a boxing background and studied savate, it's like French kickboxing.
Right.
He goes to Japan, he learns jiu-jitsu. So he comes back and he's like puts that together into like a fighting style. It's a real thing, and it's actually mentioned by Arthur Conan Doyle in the Sherlock Holmes books. So I was like, I'm an expert in Bartitsu, and I said that I was raised in a carnival, and that unfortunately, as you can see, there aren't a whole lot of carnivals around, so I had to find the biggest carnival there is. And there was all of this weird stuff people would like impose from their own imagination, like that we were time travelers or that we were supposed to be like 150 years old, all sorts of shit that we never said, we never implied. It was the weirdest thing because it was like they were just filling in the gaps with their own imagination because rather than us having the opportunity to explain this stuff or talk about it or like present ourselves as three-dimensional human beings, it was, this is what you are, this is what we want from you, this is what you have time to do.
Did you ever have one of those where like you heard it through the grapevine, like, hey, somebody came up with this kind of theory to fill in a gap, and you went like, oh, I kind of like that, and you sort of ran with it?
No.
No?
I know there are times that's happened for people, not even just in wrestling, just in general.
Mm.
But that's usually because artists don't necessarily think about their art as much as the viewer, as the observer. I'm sure you know the Kevin Smith story about the black and white for Clerks.
Yeah.
And how he did it because there was a color grading problem and everyone looked green.
Mm-hmm.
But when people were viewing the movie, they were saying, oh, it's because it's like they're watching through the security camera.
Oh.
And he started going, damn, that's good. I wish I thought of that. When he started getting interviewed after that, he was like, oh, yeah, no, it's because, you're watching kind of like through the security camera. That's the perspective, because we're observing them in this environment. Because he didn't think that deep about it. He was like, I have a technical problem I need to solve. This is a solution I was given. We'll go with that. But a lot of audience members will over analyze and those again they'll place their own theories and ideas on top of what you're doing, and in their mind it's fully canon, it's fully what the story is,
Right.
and it just isn't.
That's fair. That almost makes me the black and white thing just reminds me, and again, I talk comics occasionally. We just talked to Chucky Bates before this, and we got into comics. There's an old thing. I'm a huge Incredible Hulk fan. I've got quite a few of his comics. Originally with him, like he was gray, and the entire thing was because like green is so easy to like. They couldn't maintain the proper shade of it with the presses that they had at the time, and so it was always different shades of green. And so they're like, screw it, we're just going with gray up until more modern times when they could make it a more consistent color green.
Mhm.
And that always just made me wonder, like, is that a theory or is that legitimate? I mean, it sounds
Oh, because the original Hulk design was green originally, and then it went to gray for a while,
Yep, it
and
was.
then
Yep, because they couldn't maintain the consistency of the color green.
I mean, stuff like that's happened before. I know with the Phantom comics in Brazil, he's actually red instead of purple, and that was 100% because there was a problem with the dye, like the ink they were using. It turned red instead of purple.
It's so crazy that you mentioned Phantom. I literally have one of his comics right here within my eye line, and there's not many people that remember Phantom. Like my introduction to Phantom was the
The
old,
Billy Zane.
yeah, the movie like Aim, Lock, Fire with his skull ring.
Oh yeah, no, Billy Zane is come on, he's a good dude.
Oh yeah.
But no, an underrated film. That The Shadow, Rocketeer. There were quite a few of those where they took the old like golden age comics and just like brought them to life. And people did not appreciate it in the era. But I feel like if you go back and watch those movies, they stand up incredibly well.
Oh yeah, even like one that came across my eye line recently that was an old one I watched, Dark Man with Liam Neeson.
Yeah, I know Darkman.
Oh yeah, it
I
was.
also know the sequel, Darkman, what was it? The Return of Durant, and then the third one, Die Darkman Die, which starred Arnold Vosloo,
Hmm.
whom Sam Raimi knew in part because he was cast in the John Woo film Hard Target with Jean-Claude Van Damme, which was also produced by Sam Raimi.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
You you're a movie aficionado.
I'm not.
You're
I
not?
am a certain type of movie aficionado.
That's fair. I like to say I'm a movie aficionado, but I'm fairly certain I just repeat a lot of things that I'm not even 100% sure are true, and I tell my wife I was raised by television basically. Movies and television is what raised me.
I was raised by USA Up All Night. Very
Okay.
specific, not just movies, but the sort of genre films, the type of thing, a lot of canon pictures, a lot of stuff that was like, hey, we've got a former light heavyweight kickboxing champion, and we've got a former Playboy playmate. Give him like $300,000 and put him on an island and have him do karate. A lot of nudity. That's all it was,
Hey,
and it was
some
great.
yeah, that's all you need sometimes. I mean, I grew up just like it was 80s action movies, a lot of Jean-Claude Van Damme, Kurt Russell, Schwarzenegger and Stallone, of course, but then also like sci-fi original movies, those like Sharktopus, The Jersey Devil, things like that. And so those kind of got together, and now you have my personality.
It's how so many of us were formed in that era. A lot of people forget that. That's how we came about.
Oh yeah, I absolutely love just my favorite thing to do is to go on like I mean Tubi you get some great ones of these, but like the lowest star rating is the exact one that I want to watch. I want to watch a very like not even B-list movies, like C, D tier list movies. And those are the ones I want. Bad CGI, like this looks like a sci-fi original but worse quality, and those are some of the best movies that I've watched.
Because they're made with passion, not talent, not skill, but passion. They clearly cared about what they were making and just were not able to do anything better. That's always an interesting experience.
That is speaking of passion, it is a there's a film that I constantly recommend to people that I picked up probably last year, and it's you can't find it very much. You've but there's a documentary about it. It's called Roar, and it is
Oh yeah, I know Roar. Yeah,
yeah, the lion
yeah. Shot
documentary.
for the course of like 10 years, and like 30 people got injured by lions. All
Oh,
this.
every single member of the crew,
Yeah.
including like gaffers and all that, did not walk away without getting mauled.
Oh yeah, I've seen the documentary. I'm familiar with it. I don't think I've ever watched the actual film.
If you watch the film, it's like this close to being a snuff film because like you get the director who's also the lead star in there because he can't get anybody else to be around 30 plus lions, and he's the only one that's trying to act in the scenes, and he'll just jump right in between lions, and everybody else will try to like they start their scene, but then the lion will just beeline and make eye contact with them. And so the whole time it's just people running from lions and tigers and then hiding in a cabinet. And then you watch a lion peel the cabinet door off like it's a can of tuna. It's, it's a wild
And
film.
I've heard stranger things, but not by much. Like there's a lot of odd ones out there. Famously, I think it was when they were filming Invasion USA. No, not Invasion USA. The original, maybe it was the original Delta Force. It was a Chuck Norris movie where they're the terrorists on the plane, and it's a whole thing. But they, Golan Globus, the producers from Canon Pictures, they had access to the Israeli military to film certain piece of equipment for the movie to get stock footage.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a famous story about Menachem Golan, the obviously Golan from Golan Globus. He got told by the pilot who was like taking off landing. He was like, well, I'm over hours. I can't fly anymore. And he grabbed a gun and threatened the guy at gunpoint. He's like, we have to finish the shot.
Really?
Like, you have to keep flying. We need to get the shot.
Huh.
And you think about that, you're like, this man pulled a gun on a military officer
Yeah.
to get a shot in a movie. And that's not even the craziest thing a director's ever done.
No.
I think it was, I want to say it was Francis Ford Coppola.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody said I always keep a picture of Abraham Lincoln with me on set, not because he was a great president, but because I have to be reminded that he was shot and killed by an actor.
I mean, hell of a reminder.
Yeah, that's the one. Like, if you don't mess with actors, you don't know how far in they are. You never want to be that guy. Do you want to get shot by Jared Leto? Do you want to be that guy?
I mean,
No.
at least by Alec Baldwin.
Exactly.
you want some good star power to shoot you.
Exactly. Like, I want somebody who's been in something I've enjoyed.
That's fair.
You know,
that's like the old Alfred Hitchcock when he was filming The Birds, and ironically, I bring that up, and Tippi Hedren was in both Roar and The Birds, and it was that scene in the telephone booth just before they shot that Tippi Hedren had a deathly fear of birds, and she's telling Hitchcock that she's like, "Hey, I am terrified of birds," and he's going, "Don't worry, sweetheart. They're all fake birds. See, they're all plastic birds. You're gonna be fine." And he closes the telephone booth door, and he turns to his producer, and he's like, "I want you to throw real birds at her," because he wanted legitimate fear on Tippi Hedren's face. And so when you watch that scene in Birds, and she's freaking out, it's because she's realizing, oh, these are real birds around me. Because Hitchcock wanted legitimate fear in his shot. He didn't believe in Tippi.
Well, and that's the thing is that you'll hear the stories about like what was it Kubrick when he did The Shining, and how he was absolutely torturous to God, what was her name? Shelley Duvall.
Yes.
Beyond the fact, I like to believe that when he would do that, you know, he's just berating her 127 takes. I like to think that every time he just turned to Jack Nicholson like, "Jack, great job. Keep doing what you're doing. Sorry, she keeps screwing it up for you, you know, but I mean, nothing we can do. I mean, if Shelley can't get it together." Always absolutely praising Jack, never has a problem with him. But the idea was the same, is that he thought, I need real tension. I need her really to look like she's coming apart at the seams. I don't want someone acting. I want someone to legitimately look afraid.
Yeah.
And the problem with that mentality, though, is that on the screen, people can't really tell the difference. Like, as a director, you definitely can, but I feel like when people go to, like, it's like with method acting, that's for the actor. That's not meant for the scene. Yeah. What's his name? Not Jeremy Irons.
Daniel Day-Lewis.
Daniel Day-Lewis, thank you. He got asked about it when all the stuff with Jared Leto was happening during the production of Suicide Squad, and his whole point was, method acting is meant to be for the actor because coming in and out of character can be challenging, and it's easier just to stay in. It's not meant to be, you know, free reign to be a jerk.
Right.
Because again, no one ever method acts as somebody who's nice, you know? No one's ever.
That's true.
No one's ever like, oh yeah, he kept buying us lunch because that's what his character would do. Like, you never hear a story like that.
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, Jared Leto could always play off like, no, I left the dead rats on your porch. That was lunch, you know?
That would imply Jared Leto could act, though. That's
fair. I'm giving him far too much credit.
That's far too generous a thing to give to him.
Yeah. Is there a persona that you kind of, like, in the back of your mind you always wanted to bring in, or were you always kind of stuck on, like, the Simon Gotch of the singlet and all that?
My thought was, because I'd never been a gimmick guy. I'd never been someone who like leaned on a gimmick.
Fair.
So when I started doing it, it was very much like a natural progression of something I was already doing. So it was easier for me to transition into it. But in my mind, I was like, well, the gimmick isn't going to be forever. Eventually, anyone who has a gimmick in wrestling, one of two things happens. They either drop the gimmick and they evolve, or they sort of get locked into the gimmick and they get released, and you see them doing the sort of the family show circuit where, you know, the Doink the Clowns, the Brutus the Barber Beefcakes, the Tito Santanas. It's not a knock on that. It's like it's a good payday.
Right.
A lot of those guys, it was like, well, this was the thing I did in WWE, so this is what I'm going to do everywhere. I want everyone, you know, it's like that's their calling card. For me, I always figured the gimmick would be temporary, and you know, I was hoping that I would allow me. I'd be in a position eventually where I could transition into being more myself and doing something more that I'm, you know, a little bit more in tune with what I like to do stylistically and, you know, artistically, so to speak. And I never really got that opportunity in WWE, so I was like, okay, well, you know, you kind of got to move on from it. And nowadays, I don't really do the gimmick unless I'm booked with Matt specifically, which is both because it's not, like I said, it's really not really reflective of where I'm at right now. And on top of that, it does, from a market standpoint, it helps me to keep the price a little bit more of a premium for when I do it. So me and Matt can, you know, obviously, like I'm not gonna like if I'm just wrestling as me, I generally don't charge as much because like, well, you'll get a great match. Don't get me wrong.
Of course.
Whoever you put in, it's going to be the best match of their career. And I don't say that as just, you know, brag. I mean, legitimately, the most common feedback I get when I do a lot of these shows is that was the best match I've ever seen like I have.
Well, good.
From
That's
like,
what you always want to hear.
That's the goal, right?
Yeah.
So I'll do that sort of thing, but it's like if we're doing the gimmick, it's like, okay, we'll do the gimmick, but you have to understand the gimmick comes at a premium because you only don't do it by myself. And when we're tagging, it's like, yeah, we're doing the gimmick, but the gimmick is also, that means the visible WWE relationship versus just my name, so to speak.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, when you were in NXT and WWE, you obviously had your tag team partner of Aiden English, and I'm sure you guys had a great relationship, and you guys, you know, ran through WWE. You held the tag team title, or the NXT tag team
I was
title,
just
excuse me.
that was, yeah.
I caught myself, don't worry. And was there ever a moment, like even in NXT or in WWE, where you were like going to someone going, hey, like, as much as I love the tag team stuff, can I do more solo work, or trying to go off on your own, or did you not want to ruffle any feathers?
I didn't want to ruffle any feathers. I think I only did 2 singles matches. Yeah, I think no, actually, I only had 1 singles match on TV in WWE on the main roster, and I don't think I had any other singles matches in WWE other than house shows for like NXT stuff. Most of those were with Kalisto, with Manny.
Mm-hmm.
Few with, I think, one with Buddy Murphy, and one with Big Cass. I think you could probably, and then one with Sylvester LaForte. So I think I probably had 5 singles matches in NXT without Matt.
Okay.
And then I had one on the main roster with Jack Swagger on like main event, I think.
Gotcha. Was there one, like, I know you said you didn't want to ruffle any feathers, but we all fantasize and, you know, think about like, ooh, if I could just get this going. Is there at your time at the WWE, was there a wrestler you're like, I really want a match with this guy?
I would have loved to have done more singles stuff with Chad Gable. That was
Okay.
the big one. Gable and I had really good chemistry. He was always really fun to work with. I joke. I'm the legitimately Chad Gable could out wrestle me. Legitimately, he is. I mean, I think he was ranked 9th in the world in Greco.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, if he wants to, he's got me. There's no question about that. When we're working, I think I'm the only person in a working sense that ever got told don't out wrestle Chad Gable. And everyone else got told, Gable would get told, don't let these guys out wrestle you. I was the only one they were telling, don't out wrestle Gable. Now, again, it doesn't mean he couldn't stop me at any moment. He absolutely could have. But in a working sense, it's a very much a give and take, and he was not selfish, which I appreciated a great deal. And I was never trying to make him look bad. I don't think I ever did.
Right.
Because ultimately, he's so athletic. Even if you try to out wrestle him, you just can't. It's a similar thing with Kurt Angle. Like, if we're putting the relationship in perspective, I'm the Benoit to his Angle.
Okay.
It's not that Benoit wasn't a good wrestler, but again, Benoit looks good because he's in there with Angle. Like, because they're up, because Angle can match everything Benoit can do. He could do more, yes, but he can match everything Benoit can do. Not a lot of people could do that in that era. And I could match everything Gable could do, but there weren't at a point when not a lot of people could do that. But could he? But he could have absolutely destroyed me at any point if he wanted to. So that's not even a question.
That's fair. Like, I feel like you mentioned his name's or his actual name, but do you still do a lot of things with Aiden English, or even outside of wrestling? Do you guys hang out,
We
barbecue,
never
things like that?
really, this is always taken really badly by people, and it's a whole other explanation for it. We were never social together. We get along fine. Like, we'll chit chat when we're at shows. We traveled together. Well, like, it was nothing. It was never a big deal. But I said that one time that we weren't like friends. Like, and by that I mean, like, yeah, I go to Chicago sometimes for like shows and family stuff, and like I'm not like calling him like, hey man, you want to go grab a pizza? In the same way, when he's in Florida, he's not doing the same. It's not a knock on each other. It's just, but it's like we work together, we get along. Like,
Yeah.
it's fine that that's what it is. But there is this parasocial sense a lot of the audience has where they want you guys to be best friends, and they want you guys to be like your characters. The
Mhm.
weirdest thing is that you'll see some wrestling fans who get very upset if you stay in character when you engage with them, and
Right.
you'll see some wrestling fans get really upset if you don't stay in character, and you never guess right no matter how hard you try. You could do both, and the person will be upset at either one. But there is this weird parasocial desire to like see us as our characters in real life. So they want to be like, oh, you guys are like best friends. Like, most tag teams don't even like each other. The fact that we get along with each other is like you try to explain to somebody, it's like, you understand that there are like large swaths of time, like the Rock and Roll Express, the Midnight Express, and the Road Warriors would not talk to each other.
Oh yeah, I can only imagine like the amount of time you have to spend together at work. There's gonna be times where you're like, hey man, just give me some space.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's like there's nothing wrong with that. There's
Yeah.
no ill will between us. It's just like, yeah, we have our own lives, we have our own stuff. Like, we don't need to, you know, hang. And again, we don't live in the same area. He moved back to Chicago pretty quickly after we got called up.
Okay.
So I stayed in Orlando, so it was one of those things where, again, it's not even like we were near each other. But for some reason, the audience finds that really offensive when you say it.
Hmm.
And I remember seeing somebody like citing that the best tag teams are always best friends, and they listed like three tag teams that were all related, like the
Uh,
Usos. We're like, oh, you mean the twin brothers get along really well? You mean, what about like Owen Hart and Bret Hart, or Bret Hart and Anvil? It's like, well, Bret Hart and Anvil were brothers-in-law. Bret Hart and Owen were brothers. Like, you keep citing guys that are related to each other
I don't
as
know, man. The Hardy Boys seem to have a close. They were like this.
right. Well, but that's what I mean. I'm like, even the brothers don't like each other all that often. But it's just this weird thing where the audience. It goes back to my whole point about how there's some people that just like to socialize in the thing.
Hmm.
They really want it to be something it's not, and it's difficult because I have a propensity for just being honest,
Right.
which in an industry built on deception and misdirection is not always well received by the audience, because I assume like, well, we're all aware of what's going on here, right? We're all aware it's a show, like, but there's some people that even if they know that, they will fight to the death anyone who does anything that breaks the illusion for them, even if it's something that seemingly shouldn't bother them.
Right. I always wonder if there's ever a moment where Matt Hardy turns to Jeff and goes, "Hey man, can we just not do a ladder this time?"
Oh, probably every time since he started walking that way. But yeah.
That's true. There's only so many times you can dive 30 feet from the air onto somebody.
Yeah, again, I get the appeal, but there's always a lot of diminishing returns, you know?
True. Do you ever have one of those moments where you tried to do something a little bit more and like I'd imagine, 25 years in the industry, you've had some injuries and things like that.
No, actually,
Really?
so I've had one major injury, technically two, but one major injury. I
Okay.
tore both of my ACL in 2004.
How'd you do that?
Two separate injuries. I tore my left ACL wrestling Jay Lethal. I'd sprained my knee, and I just took a bunch of ibuprofen to get the swelling down so I could keep wrestling.
Fair.
Um, I did a run up the ropes, and the ropes were loose. I stepped on the top rope, hyperextended my knee, and just popped my ACL.
Oof.
Then my right ACL got torn out, basically. So I strapped up my knee to keep wrestling after that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm putting all my weight now on my right leg. I did another match. A guy took a bump off a back elbow or something, and when he came down, his like little arm just sort of hit the side of my leg, and my knee sort of buckled a little bit, and his partner ran in and hit me, like bumped into me, and my knee came out. So it was one of those things where it was kind of like compounding injuries. But those are the only two really serious injuries I've ever had. My back's healthy, my neck's healthy, my shoulders are healthy. Well, they're healthy now. I've had a couple periods, but yeah, my wrists are healthy, my ankles are healthy. I'm in surprisingly good shape for somebody who's been doing this as long as I have, but I've also always been very smart with what I do in ring. I've never leaned very heavily on the spectacle of injury, so to speak.
Fair.
And because of that, I've been spared a lot of the damage, but it also means that, at a point where a lot of guys would be slowing down tremendously, I've easily got another 10 to 15 years in my body. I don't want to be wrestling at 60, but
right.
Physically I could before I started experiencing that real decline of like, this isn't a good idea to keep doing.
God, making me jealous, bragging about your good knees and your good back, and I screwed mine up, but mine wasn't, fun wrestling or doing anything like that. I screwed mine up from laying carpet from when I was 11 years old until I was 18.
Again, it's a lot of repetitive injuries. I try to explain this to guys now when I teach, like the whole bump and feed is 1,000 times worse for you than the nastiest head drop. And people don't understand this because they always, again, it's the visual thing, but it's like, if you take a nasty head drop bump, you take one and everyone soaks it in. But in a bump and feed, you're bumping 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 times, whatever in a row. Your body doesn't even have a chance to recover from the last bump when the next bump's happening. And I would venture that, because you'll talk to a lot of old timers too. It was Terry Taylor one time, he's going off, he's like, you guys take so many unnecessary bumps, you're landing on your heads, you're going to get paralyzed. We used to not bump. We do 20 minutes, we wouldn't take a bump. And I looked at him and I went, Terry, how's your neck? He goes, oh, I've got 2 discs replaced. I'm like, and fusion. I'm like, Terry, how's your back? Oh, I've got like 3 discs replaced from fusion. How are your knees? Got both my knees replaced. How are your shoulders? My shoulders are messed up. I need to have surgery on them. And you didn't bump?
Right.
But what it was those guys were taking a lot. Again, it wasn't that they weren't taking bigger bumps, but they were taking so many bumps that those small bumps, and again, we tend to throw those away. We tend to be like, oh, I can take 5 or 10 of these. It's not a big deal. But if every one of them is a notch off your bump card, so to speak, the bump card doesn't know the difference between backdrop driver and 5 body slams. It just knows one is 5 and one is 1. It always comes back down to that. It doesn't mean you can't have a freak accident where someone gets hurt, but it just goes back to this idea that we tend to undervalue these very simple looking bumps, and then we tend to worry too much about these more elaborate looking bumps that aren't necessarily all that bad.
Right. How far into your career did you realize that you wanted to start helping the up and comers and actually teach wrestling?
I started teaching maybe 3 years in, and so 2004, and I've changed a lot how I teach. I think at the beginning, I think teaching is very similar to wrestling in the sense that when you start, you're very much doing an impression of someone you're a fan of or have like you're coaching the way your coach coached you.
Okay. And
I think the biggest sign of growth as a teacher is when you start coaching like you and not like how you were coached. Well, you're not sort of passing down the trauma, so to speak.
Who do you think you mimicked early on in your teaching?
Mike Modest,
Okay.
Donovan Morgan, the guys that I trained under, Danielson, Brian Danielson. They were. Wrestling wise, I was training more like Brian, but when it came to sort of discipline and behavior, I was training a lot more like Mike and Donovan, who were they basically come up in a system where it was still abuse. I tried to explain it. I got in on the cusp of the end of that when wrestling training was basically just straight up abuse.
Right.
But nowadays, again, it's a lot different. I'm not trying to break anybody's neck. I'm not trying to make anybody feel shame. I'm just trying to get you better as a wrestler. Like, I don't care if you can bench press 500 pounds. Like, I'm telling you that'll make you a better wrestler because more strength means easier to execute techniques safely. But at the end of the day, I'm like, dude, I'm not here to make you do 5,000 squats. If you want to do those on your own time, that's your business. But I'm trying to make you a better wrestler. And usually that means I want people to understand how to maximize what they do, not necessarily to copy what I do.
Fair. Okay. Is there ever like can you kind of pinpoint when you're teaching, you're like, oh, this guy's gonna be, a hot shot, full of himself?
I generally know as soon as I see someone if they'll make it to a match, if they're going to get beyond that.
What's
And
your
I don't think
sorry, keep going.
I don't think it's the hardest thing to do either. I think if you really look at people, you can generally tell when someone has a low ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll be wrong sometimes. I'm an example of being wrong. I think if you asked anybody when I started training if I would ever get to a match, they would have said no. If you asked them if I would ever, get booked anywhere, they would have said no. If they said, is he ever going to make it out of the state? They would have said no. If you said, is he ever going to get, signed? They would have said absolutely not. If they said, would he ever amount to anything in developmental? They would have said, like, it would have just been no's all the way down the board. But I was an anomaly in that sense. But there are a lot of guys, I think you look at him and you're like, yeah, he's going to be a 20-mile vet at best. That guy's never going to have a match. That guy has potential, but ultimately it's a matter of what he chooses to do and who he listens to, because that can be a big factor as well in whether or not someone's successful. Is if you're listening to the wrong people, getting the wrong advice, and it doesn't necessarily mean ill-intended advice, just the wrong advice.
Right.
You might have someone with a lot of potential who never quite breaks through because of it.
When you run into these guys that, might be full of themselves or like way too excited, or do you change up your teaching method to like adapt to those guys, or do you just have like a set method and you like, if it works out, it works out?
I tend to look at what they're doing and I try to sort of figure out if their self-appraisal is accurate. I was doing some shows in Missouri for a friend of mine, and there was a kid there. He had an amateur wrestling background. He had a good build. He's very athletic. And we're talking. He goes, well, I cut a really good promo. And I said, well, can I see one? Just asking. And I wasn't doing it to be rude or mean or try to make fun of him. I was like, no, let me see one of your promos. I'm curious.
Right.
And he brings up the promo, and I watch it. And he's all smiling, and I went, that was terrible. and he thinks I'm joking. I'm like, no, that was really bad. He's like confused, and I tell him, you hit every cliche, every idiom, let me tell you something. I'm gonna go out there, I'm gonna beat you pillar to post, because I'm the man, and I'm the man with the power, and I'm the best wrestler in the world. And that's why I'm gonna beat you in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, at the Atlanta Super. I'm like, you're doing wrestling school 101. NWA, WCW Saturday night. We've got to record 55 promos for TV. So I need 55 1-minute promos from you right now. And you're just hammering out every cliche you can think of. I'm like, and in a sense, you're doing an impression of a pro wrestling promo. And the goal should be, to really engage, to bring something more to what you're speaking. And I think a lot of guys get caught up in this idea of what a promo is supposed to look like. But again, they don't understand the blueprint for a promo was we're taping TV for 20 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Or we're taping TV right now. We need a bunch of spot show promos because we've got 75 house shows between now and our next taping. So you've got to do 75 promos. And they would go, okay, we need 1 minute. It's you and Bulldog Bob Brown in Tampa. And it's like, okay, done. Okay, we need another promo. Next one is you and Harley Race in Atlanta. Go. Okay, next one is you and Ric Flair in Texas. Go. And that's how they were set up. So the reason guys would do these really fast-paced, let me tell you something, I'm going to go out there and beat your ass. It was because they were just basically having to do it out of necessity. but that's what everyone saw, and they assumed that necessity was by design and not, necessity.
Right. Was there something that you accessed in yours and like took inspiration from whenever you cut your promos?
It depends. I don't like doing promos.
Fair.
For the most part, the reason I don't like doing it is I feel like, again, they're sort of thrown away. It's very disposable. Where someone's just like, hey, I just need a promo for this show. I'm like, so you need a promo for a cold match with someone I've never met before in a company I've never been to before that I might not be going back to ever again. And you need me to have deep emotions about this. What do you want me to say? And in a lot of cases, I know they just want exactly the wrestler promo because it goes back to this idea, or what I was saying earlier about how people haven't really evolved their sense of how to promote. So they just say, well, that's what they do on TV. They have these promos, so we need a promo. Like, well, do you have TV? No. Okay, well, if you don't have TV, then where's this airing? Oh, we're going to put it on our social media. Okay, well, I don't think anyone who's following you on social media is going to be more excited to hear me talk than they are to see me dropping people on their heads and clotheslining them half to death. Like, I think show some footage of me wrestling, and I guarantee you they'll get a better reaction than me telling this guy that I'm going to come there and beat his ass, who I've never met and I have no issue with. I have no reason to be angry at.
That's fair. I think cutting the promos, I think it leads more it adds to itself when it's, between matches when you have it on television, like to promote the match when it's minutes away, not days away.
Mm-hmm. I mean, even the promo I did for Social X, because I was sitting there like, what could I do? What could I do? Because it was that sort of situation where I'm like, I don't even know the guys who are wrestling. I know nothing about them. We've never so I went, okay, let me make like a short video, like the old film strip thing. It's a vaudeville saying I'll use the puppets because again, since me and Matt live so far apart, it's not like we can get together for a promo. So I use the puppets because like it's just a good fill-in and it's funny and it fits the character. So and it fills the need, right? If you want something cute, you can throw up there that'll make people laugh and they'll pay attention to it works. But I think for the most part with promos, we really overestimate their value. I was actually thinking about this the other day because we'll often see people say like, what's more important in a top star, wrestling ability or promo ability? And what's the common answer?
I would say wrestling ability.
But what is the common answer? Because that's not the common answer.
That's fair. Promos, how they can promote themselves
And I always ask the same question. Can you think of a top guy who was an absolutely awful wrestler? And here's the thing. People go, well, what about Hogan? Hogan was lazy. If you go back and watch him when he was younger, he was more competent. He definitely knew what he was doing at a certain point. But as time went on and he was able to do less, get by doing less, he did less. Ultimate Warrior was sloppy, but again, he wasn't like completely incompetent. He could have a good match. But for some reason we have but once you get past that, maybe Lex Luger would be the next one. But that's three top guys in the last 50 years that have been like maybe not great wrestlers. Steve Austin could wrestle.
Yeah.
Bret Hart could wrestle. Ric Flair could wrestle. Dusty Rhodes could wrestle.
It's a little bit harder for Flair to wrestle down the line.
But eventually, yeah. I mean, the one unbeaten person in all of life is time. No one beats time.
Yeah.
But if you look at it like this myth that every top guy couldn't wrestle and could talk is based solely around Hogan and isn't even accurate to him. And if you really would you say Macho Man couldn't wrestle?
No, I wouldn't say he couldn't wrestle, but I mean, what about guys like Ultimate Warrior, where it's like he could technically wrestle, but it was such a pain in the ass to wrestle with him.
But again, that's the minority. You're always going to have some people who get through, but the way that it's phrased, that the promo is more important, you would tend to believe then that the majority of guys who were popular couldn't wrestle but could talk. Mm-hmm. When the majority of guys could wrestle and could talk and were being promoted by the company heavily. And there's a small percentage of guys who couldn't really talk that well and a small percentage of guys that couldn't really wrestle that well. But for the most part, they were still outliers. But for some reason, this has been repeated so many times throughout history that we fully believe it without ever questioning, hey, maybe that isn't true. We had I remember a guy saying to me one time, everyone who ever drew money did it off a punch and a promo. And I thought to myself, I was like, well, because I didn't say it out loud because I didn't want to get in trouble.
Right.
I was like, every guy who also didn't draw money cut promos and threw punches. So maybe those aren't the factors. Maybe there are other things going on as to why someone wasn't a draw.
Is there another X factor that you think between cutting promos and wrestling, is there another factor that could make a good wrestler?
I think that when you really go out and try to look at other factors, it's often stuff that is very much tangible, but people don't know how to describe.
Mm.
And it bothers me because people say something like, oh, they've got aura, they've got charisma, they've got the it factor. And all these are placeholder words when people do not have the emotional intelligence or the intellect to describe what they are feeling.
Whatever happened to describing it as moxie or chutzpah?
Well, again, people don't like when you use Yiddish. That's a big problem nowadays.
I suppose.
But again, it's this idea of like, I don't know what I'm feeling, but I like this guy, and rather than trying to figure out what I'm feeling, I'm just going to throw out this blanket term. But even charisma's bullshit. Charisma's completely fake. Charisma is just unquestioned confidence.
And charisma can kind of be thrown into the same realm as cutting promos, because you can't really have one without the other.
Well, the argument is people think if they like your promo, you must have charisma. Which is kind of like no. The idea of charisma would be that no matter what I do, you like it. I don't have to cut a promo. I could just stand there. There's actually something Corey Graves did one time in promo class where he got up and he's sitting there, or he's standing there, he's like, you have guys coming up here in, $1,000 suits. I'm wearing my wife's tracksuit. I still look better than all y'all. I was like, that's a great line. Like
It is.
He kind of put everybody in their place. He's like, I look better than you wearing my wife's ratty tracksuit than you do in your $1,000 suit.
It gives it layers. Like, not only am I in a tracksuit and like lesser clothing, but also I'm wearing my wife's tracksuit.
Yeah, I look at it. It's like, this isn't even mine. This isn't even something I wear normally. I cared so little about this that I showed up dressed like that, and that's the whole point. Is that I was like, it sends a message, and people will interpret that as charisma, but it's like what it was confidence. He stated something confidently, and that's what most people mistake. They think charisma is this like ethereal thing that you can't really define, but it's like it's not. It's just confidence, unquestioned. Because again, if you question someone's confidence, they can either back it up or they can't, and that's where the line is. Mick Foley talks about it when he did his Cactus Jack transition promo with Triple H before the Royal Rumble.
Mm-hmm.
How all Triple H had to do was laugh at him and say, "You're just the same broke down fat man in a different T-shirt." And he's like, "It would have killed me. It would have absolutely ended me if he did that." And he's like, because he freaked out and got scared, everyone buys into it. But legitimately, it's like, I was just going to wear a different T-shirt, not wear the mask. That's all that was happening.
Yeah, those iterations of Mick Foley, like all of his Dude Love and Cactus Jack, they all did kind of fuse together at one point where I was like, wait, is he going to be this or this? Even though they were all in separate eras.
Oh, yeah. But again, that was the whole point, is that ultimately what you liked was Mick Foley, the person. He sold his personality, and wrestling is probably the first form of entertainment to really exploit the parasocial relationship. Like before you had influencers and internet personalities, like wrestling was really the place where you lied to people to convince them that you were a completely different person than you actually were. When we are observing media, is we want to be the star of it. It's why a lot of JRPGs don't have a protagonist with dialogue. It's why a lot of, that was a thing in video games for a long time. It's why a lot of the time, the main character in a movie doesn't really have a personality, because it's like they're just meant to be a vessel for the audience to engage with the story. And wrestling is super guilty of that, in that people just want, like, at the end of the day, when someone complains about a push, or when they complain about, the finish to a match or whatever, the sort of stuff that shouldn't matter to them beyond like, this is where the story's going, it almost always comes down to, I wouldn't have wanted to lose that match. I wouldn't want that to have happened to me. This isn't where my fantasy would have gone. And it just becomes it's a pointless game to try and keep up with. There's no reason to try and please everybody. You write a story, you tell the story, people either like it or they don't. But if you're constantly trying to change the story as it's going to please everybody, you're going to make something that no one likes. Not even you.
Well, Speaking of things that I would love to continue talking with you, but unfortunately we're overtime at this point. We have
Oh, you want one last thing that I think you'll really appreciate?
You know what? Please, by all means. I am
Because I teased this earlier before we started recording, but I will tell you this right now.
Yes, of course. I was trying to figure out a way to get to it, but you know what? I was too enthralled with talking with you.
You're a Batman fan, yes?
Absolutely. I've got the full sleeve and comics everywhere.
I have a theory that Batman is accidentally the most positive portrayal of a neurodivergent person, of someone on the autism spectrum, ever devised. I don't think it was by design, but hear me out.
I'm all ears.
Okay, so why does Batman dress like a bat?
To impose his fear upon his enemies.
Okay, why do all of his weapons have to be bat themed? Why do all of his vehicles have to be bat themed? Why does his telephone have to be bat themed? Why does the way you contact him have to be bat themed?
Branding.
No like reason. No, there's no reason for it. A batarang makes no sense from a design standpoint. But if he's hyper fixated on bats because he's on the spectrum, it makes perfect sense. How does this guy master every martial art in the world over the course of like 12 years? If he's, a normal person, a neurotypical person, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But again, if he's hyper fixated on it, it makes a bit of sense now, doesn't it?
Yeah.
A guy like, Mikey Muschietti, jiu-jitsu guy, where it's like the guy, he's on the spectrum and he's like, he's a dork, he eats pasta, and he does jiu-jitsu 24 hours a day. That's all he does. But then again, you start going even deeper into it, where this is what a fascinating thing you learn. There's a term for people who are on the spectrum called masking, where they will put on a fake persona, basically, when dealing with people in the real world, because they know their natural personality is, not going to be well received.
Right.
What does Batman call himself in his head? Because it's not Bruce Wayne.
No, he's Batman. Bruce Wayne is his persona.
So he puts on a mask of Bruce Wayne whenever he's around normal people. Batman's the real person. So again, all these little aspects of his character that people think make no sense line up perfectly when you apply the logic of him being neurodivergent. And this even, I think, I sort of can file this under the fact that a lot of kids who are on the spectrum are Batman fans. I think they recognize it subconsciously.
Well, now you're calling me out. Come on, Simon.
No, it's
give me that look.
Well, again, this goes into a bigger theory I have that if you really want to get, I think in history, most notable people were either autistic, psychotic, or sociopath. One of the three.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think because of that, we look at a lot of these behaviors people in those groups have as being desirable, like super focused, extremely intelligent, very calculating, like these things that we would normally associate with being very positive traits because of these people. It's because of their neurodivergence that they actually have those traits. So if you met a Sherlock Holmes, again, it's just another example of a guy where you're like, he's kind of off, but he's really smart and he's really good at this thing, but he can't play violin, but he's obsessed with playing violin. You're like, yeah, who does that sound like?
I think they played definitely into that when they did the Benedict Cumberbatch version of Sherlock Holmes, where they definitely delved more into the autism side of it.
Well, he even says, I'm not a psychopath, I'm a high-functioning sociopath. Get it right.
And there's even like with Batman comics that they take another angle with it, not just the neurodivergent part. And I'm sure you're familiar with these. There's a comic series where like Batman is actually like Bruce Wayne like was traumatized because of what he went through with his parents, and he's actually in a psych ward, and Alfred is actually like basically
the Joker, yeah, the whole, yeah.
Or well, there's some where he's just Harvey Dent or Two-Face is actually a nurse that like he's nice when he's around other people, but then he's super mean to him when he's by himself. And Jim Gordon's actually the head of the psych ward, but all of his villains are just different nurses or wards of the psych ward that are taking care of Bruce, but he is in his mind thought like, oh no, I'm Batman, these are my villains, and Alfred's just kind of like trying to be the good fatherly figure, and it's like amusing him up to a point. I think
Well,
that
again,
yeah, I thought that was an interesting take of taking it like No, none of the Batman stuff is real. This is a mental patient that is just going through complete delusion.
I always feel like that explanation, though, even just in universe, it just feels lazy. You know, like it's a fascinating like one shot take, but there's always that part of me that goes like, if it's all in his head, then what's the point? You know?
I think it's lazy when you look at it from like as a whole. It's like, oh yeah, no, he's just crazy. But then you take the little things of, like I said, like
Right.
Two-Face is, the mean nurse, and Scarecrow is actually the anesthesiologist that he's afraid of. When you take those little details and add to the broad spectrum of it, I think it adds a lot more to it. It still only works as like a single series as comics. You can't go the full spectrum that you've gone with Batman with it, but I think it makes a great series.
Well, and again, sometimes that's all it needs to be, though. I think the problem that we run into with an audience for anything is, again, that desire for canon to be whatever they want it to be. And sometimes you just have to accept that, like, there was a point where the Star Wars expanded universe, the novelizations, that those were canon, and then they weren't. But if you enjoy the books, you enjoy the books, you know?
We
The stories are still.
had a big conversation about that in a couple episodes ago with going into the Star Wars books, and I know we had a fan recommend in the comments. There was one series that, again, not canon, but a fantastic story of a zombie outbreak breaking out in like a Star Destroyer.
I was very let down when I saw The Force Awakens. Not directly, but in a moment because it's like, oh, we're getting the Solo twins. We're getting the Solo twins.
Right.
And then it's like, they're not related. I'm like, oh, so we're not getting the Solo twins. So you set up this whole thing where like Ray and Ben are the Solo twins, and then you just don't do it. Like
Right.
that hurt.
It's
But
teasing you.
no, I still want the I can't remember the style, but the band style of lightsaber. I just want one movie about that. Maybe a Disney Plus series. I don't know, but the band style lightsaber where they actually turn it on and off throughout combat.
Oh yeah.
Just give us that. That's all anyone wants. Just let me see just a badass like one-eyed, Jedi who's been kicked out of the order because he practices the forbidden style, just working as a mercenary. Like let's just see that.
Oh yeah. I think they teased at it a couple of times, like in the newer trilogy.
Skeleton crew, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, they tease it, but I mean, you even get. I know, like reality, like there's so much fan art of different like forms of lightsabers that I wish would have been explored. Like you see like whip lightsabers, even like mace lightsabers or Morningstar battle axe lightsabers, and you kind of had some of those with like the guards where you get like it mainly just looks like an axe, and then on the end where the blade would be, it's a laser. But I would have loved to, yeah, just like a small series of like, hey, just a dude that is, neurodivergent, because of course he's probably going to be just forging the weirdest lightsabers possible.
I mean, you don't even need that. You just need Yoda. There's one of Yoda's species just making lightsabers. We'll find out they're the ones that actually do it. That's why they get the kyber crystals and they just assemble them. That's what they do.
What color lightsaber do you think you would? What one do you think you would have, and what color would you want?
Ooh,
Because I'll tell
I
you, the
feel like
one that I want super bad right now is purple.
well, the thing is that I got to be honest, the red ones look the coolest. Like the Sith lightsabers always look the coolest though. Like I, I I don't think people today will ever fully understand the absolute pants shitting excitement that was experienced by everyone who saw the trailer for episode 1 when Darth Maul extended the second saber.
Yes.
When he did that, people lost their minds. It was amazing.
I think the only comparison to him when he released the second saber was that moment where like, the alarms are going off, there's smoke everywhere, and then just through the smoke you see the red lightsaber just
Oh, I've said before, that is the best piece of Star Wars media produced in possibly ever. Because for every moment from the original release of the trilogy,
hmm
they talk about Darth Vader as being a monster. Like everyone is scared of him.
Yeah.
To the point where when the one guy mouths off in New Hope, when he gets choked, the other guy's like, "Yeah, man, maybe don't harass the giant space wizard with the laser sword. Like, maybe just let him do his stuff."
Right.
But the whole time they talk about him, and you never really see it though. So this idea of like him be because like whenever you see him fighting, it's against Obi-Wan or it's against Luke. So this idea of him coming in with just normal people and realizing he is basically Jason Voorhees in black, just slaughtering everyone. I was like, that is amazing.
I would love to see, like, I'm sure you've seen it on the internet. So there's just that one clip of like it was a Star Wars comic where you have like tanks and soldiers surrounding Darth Vader, and they're like, "We have you surrounded," and he's all I'm surrounded by is fear and dead men. That
It's a
is
cold vibe.
so good.
That Vader is the one people want to see, and we never got to. So seeing it for even a moment in Rogue One was just worth the whole movie.
Oh, absolutely. Just the of him just slamming people back, forth, sideways, and everything. Like that was they really tried it with the original trilogy, but just like the costume and all of that, it was so hard to get that mobility. So I totally understand, from a an acting perspective, like you can't necessarily get that, but yeah, like you said, with Rogue One, they absolutely captured that moment of like, oh no, this is legitimately a feared Sith Lord, and this is why.
Well, I mean, again, you can't have it and just keep going where every time we have a new Sith, whether it's uh, Darth Maul or General Grievous, where it's like, here's this guy who's way cooler than Darth Vader. Like, you can't have everyone be cooler than Darth Vader. Eventually, you have to give Vader a win, and they finally did.
Oh yeah. Although it is intimidating seeing Grievous like pull out the lightsabers and then all of a sudden they just start helicopters spinning towards you.
He's probably the most intimidating Sith that they had, who doesn't really do all that much.
See,
Like,
he's definitely more intimidating like when you watch like the cartoon, like the Clone Wars cartoon, because you see him actually it almost kind of reminds me of like Samurai Jack, like the way
well,
they were bouncing around. Sorry.
Gendy Tartakovsky was the creator of Samurai Jack. He's also the one that did Clone Wars.
Yeah, and so like you definitely see those inspiration and that again you could only, well, I mean that was 90% CGI, so they could, but like just seeing him jump around like that and stick to everything and using just like one arm and three arms and then using his feet to spin things around, like that was a super intimidating, like, oh shit, like I have no idea how to counter this.
And again, that's the whole point of technology advancing. It should be able to bring you something more than the previous films. It shouldn't just be prettier. It should be more interesting. And
Absolutely.
unfortunately, we fall in the trap so often of not making interesting art. We make disposable art that we can just move on from. That's the problem with everything, is that it shouldn't be disposable. That you should be able to go back and watch it and still enjoy it.
I will forever be a fan of practical effects in films. It's like I said before, I'm wearing the shirt of the man himself, and you know, blessings to him, and I hope to God he's got a quick recovery. But like what they did in the original Evil Dead, what they did in the original Star Wars with practical effects and that, it's just better with that. And they can do great things with CGI, but I just love seeing, a puppet of an alien creature, or, them legitimately throwing blood on you, and just the
It
practical
will,
effects of it.
because it's visceral, it's real, it's physically there. At the end of the day, when you see a special effect that's been produced practically, someone had to build it, someone had to sculpt it, someone had to pull a Rob Bottin and go into actual like psychological care after making a movie, because they went like 72 hours in a row consistently without sleep, going 2, 3, 4 days just working on product. But when it's CGI, it's at the end of the day, it's always just someone at a computer. It doesn't matter how pretty it is or how good it looks. Your brain separates it out, and it goes back to my whole point about wrestling, where you don't want to remind people it's fake. And CGI will always do that unless it blends properly, and it just very rarely does. Like if I ever look at a scene and I know I'm seeing CGI, I don't react the same way as if I see a practical effect. I just don't.
Oh yeah.
And I don't think anyone does.
It's just like with the I mean, gonna bring up autism again, Jurassic Park, but
But
like the original ones of those, they legitimately made the full T-Rex as an animatronic. And I'm sure you've heard the old stories of that, like during that scene when it first appears, like taking out the Jeep, like they had to constantly stop shooting that and dry out the T-Rex to keep going in shots because it would mess up. But then it was a guy inside the T-Rex trying to do that, and it was so enormous and dealing with all of the rain effects and all that. There would just be moments where she would just turn on and start moving without actually being on. And so like and even with the glass breaking when it came down on the kids, how it wasn't supposed to happen, going back to the Alfred Hitchcock thing of real fear, like those kids holding up that glass, like, oh, this wasn't supposed to happen, but Spielberg knew, like, oh, I've got a good moment here, like this, like obviously he's, you know, gonna be concerned with the kids eventually, but right now he was like, oh, this is a hell of a shot.
Well, he knows John Landis, so I'm pretty sure he's concerned with the kids from the get-go.
That's true. But yeah, like all those moments of just like they put the effort in, and because they brought in legit paleontologists to like, hey, we're making these dinosaurs and we're making animatronics, so we're going to bring you in, give us everything you know, and because like the combination of like the producers and the paleontologists making these dinosaurs and controlling how they move, it changed how we understood dinosaurs. There was a moment when they were making it and putting it into the computer. One guy looked at the T-Rex moving and he was like, that kind of moves like a chicken. And that's when everybody was like, oh my God. And that's how we started to realize that chickens and things like that were descendants of dinosaurs, like bird-like creatures. And so the movie itself changed how we view dinosaurs. So there's a magic to doing these things instead of just typing in code to a computer. You can full on change perspectives on things you weren't expecting to.
And that's, again, something that it's an added bonus to creating something real. And you fall into a classic trap.
Oh God, what did I do?
Oh, no, just anytime I get interviewed, you will find that the interview is always the longest interview they ever wind up doing. You'll fall into the classic trap.
Damn it, I did
Every time they're like, "Oh, we can cut it here." I'm like, "No, we can keep talking. I'm fine."
it. You know, I was warned about this, and the second you said Batman, I was like, all right, here comes a whole new interview.
You see, there you go. You can either do it as two parts, or you just do it as a long episode. It's good either way.
It's gonna be great either way. All right, before we get too far into this and make 3 full episodes on this, because by all means, I could talk about all of these things for hours on end, much like I can with a lot of my guests. Before we do any of that, Simon, what do you want people to get eyes on? Hit me with your social media tags, any upcoming shows you've got, all that.
Oh, I don't need to. They don't need to come to the social media stuff. They can find it if they need to. It's not a big deal. But I will say, I mean, I'm going to be in Germany, like 10 days. I think 10 days from now.
For
Going to
work or
Germany.
pleasure?
Work. I'm wrestling for IWI for their Emerald Festival. It's 3 days. It's my first time going to Germany. Hopefully, I'm allowed out. This is a subtle way of me saying I'm Jewish.
Say that now, not there.
They used to not. Now they let us out.
That's fair.
But there's that. Yeah. Then obviously, not long after that, we got WrestleMania week coming up in Vegas. I'm gonna be out there. So if you're going to Vegas for WrestleMania, you might see me, meandering around, perhaps engaged in some chicanery, a little bit of the shenanigans, perhaps. But yeah, just out and about.
All right. Well, what about your school? Do you want to promote that at all?
Oh, I don't have school. I just teach sometimes.
Okay.
I go to locations for seminar. I teach seminars and stuff. That's more what I do with that.
Okay. Well, if anybody wants to, I know he doesn't want to pat himself too much on the back, but please check out all of Simon Gotch's social medias. Check him out while he's on the road. Simon, thank you so much for sitting down and chatting with me for an extended period of time.
Always a pleasure.
All right. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for this episode of the State of X podcast. I want to thank my guests once again, Chucky Bates and Simon Gotch. Thank you both so much for taking the time out of your schedules to sit down and have a conversation with me. And I want to thank you all for watching this episode of State of X. Like I said, be sure to like and subscribe the video. That way you get notified when we put out these and all the other great videos on the Social X YouTube page. And have a good night. I love you.